Hello, and welcome back to Mr. B Teaches History. Today we'll examine how different policies related to the annexation or taking over of land caused much anxiety in the United States. The group with the biggest anxieties are those of the Native American Indians because they generally were forced to move off their ancestral lands when the United States took over more land and settlers moved in. So let's get started. Mexico won its independence from Spain in 1821, but they wanted to attract settlers to farm the area that would become Texas because it did not have a lot of population. The Austin family led a steady stream of migrants into the territory to the point where the American settlers outnumbered the Mexicans there 3-1 in the region. Eventually, Mexico closed the Texas territory to American settlers because they refused to follow Mexican laws like public support of the Catholic Church and slavery. In response, Sam Houston and the American settlers declared their independence from Mexico in March 1835. Mexico sent General Santa Anna to attack several towns, including the Alamo Fort in San Antonio. Remember, the Alamo becomes the rallying cry of American Texan fighters who capture the general and force him to surrender. They send a treaty to Mexico, but it is rejected by their legislature. The United States also struggled with defining borders on the northern end of the country at this time, too. Maine had an ill-defined border with rival gangs of lumberjacks fighting sporadically in the territory. This leads to the passage of the Weber-Ashburn Treaty in 1843 that finally settled the dispute both in Maine and in the Minnesota Territory. In the Northwest, Britain claimed the Oregon Territory because they had the fur trade with the Indians in the region, even if there were only about 1,000 British citizens living in the southern half of the territory. The United States, though, claimed all the territory due to the discovery of the Columbia River in 1792 by Captain Robert Gray and the overland expedition of Lewis and Clark from 1805 to 1806, and the fur trading post established in 1811. Many Americans believed in the concept of manifest destiny, that it was our God-given right and duty to overspread the whole American continent from the Atlantic to the Pacific Ocean, and some said from the northern to the southern pole. In this vein, many Americans wanted to annex Texas and Oregon. The United States Congress had debates over many years about what to do with the territory. Both Presidents Andrew Jackson and Martin Van Buren put off the annexation question. Northerners resisted annexation because they feared the expansion of slavery that it would bring. Mexico also threatened war with the United States if they attempted to annex the territory. President Tyler also tried to annex the territory, but the United States Senate rejected the treaty. The United States also tried to persuade Mexico to give up the West Coast, but they refused to negotiate. So in response, many Americans started to move to California in large numbers to play the Texas game of outnumbering Mexicans in the territory. They also moved there during the late 1840s and 1850s because of the gold rush there. After the treaty between the American settlers and the Mexican government is rejected there is no more fighting, and Texas basically rules itself without any interference from the Mexican government. The expansion of the United States and its manifest destiny was a significant issue of the 1844 presidential election. The Democratic Party nominated a protege of Andrew Jackson in John Polk. He was committed to the ideas of expansion and manifest destiny. He wanted to either annex or buy Texas, as well as occupy all of the Oregon Territory. He strongly appealed to the Western and Southern Americans who supported expansion. The Whigs nominated Henry Clay, but his flip-flopping on Texas annexation alienated New York voters to support the Liberty Party candidate instead of him. Polk takes his victory as a mandate for Texas annexation, which is one of the primary campaign promises he makes. As he is leaving office, President Tyler asks and gets a joint resolution from Congress annexing Texas because it was easier than a treaty. Then he left the incoming President Polk to deal with the consequences. President Polk then compromises with Britain on the Oregon Territory. The Oregon Territory was divided at the 49th parallel and established that as the northern border of the Louisiana Territory. This treaty also gave Vancouver Island to the British, even if part of it was below the boundary line. The British also had the right to navigate on the Columbia River. Many saw this as Polk selling out to the interests of the Southerners because it removed British Columbia as a source of a free state to balance against slave states. The Senate approved of this treaty to avoid war with Britain over the territory. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or clarifications you would like to make about this lecture, please leave a comment below. If you learned something new, please consider leaving a like. If you would like to receive notifications of more content like this, please consider subscribing and ringing the notification bell. If you would like to support this channel and creator financially, please check out the links in the description for merchandise or sites that will provide me direct financial support for the work of this channel. Thank you for your time and have a great day. Class dismissed.